lots of questions. So let me ask a question, and this is actually let me see. Sometimes people have legitimate questions about you that may be stupid or possibly insulting. When is it okay to ask? When is it okay to ask stupid or insulting questions? Now, again, we said that tonight we have kind of a carte blanche, right, of asking stupid questions. I mean, only tonight. But we had a good discussion about this over lunch. So let's talk about asking stupid questions.
I think with anything, yeah, really anything, it's about the heart. And so Tyler had mentioned just living in community. And I think that just goes back to understanding a person's heart. And so for me, this may be different for every person up here, but for me, if someone came up to me that I knew really well or that I didn't know really well and explained their genuine interest in Native American history or how that plays into my life, and has legitimate questions that they just haven't been able to ask before, I would be more than willing to answer. And so I think for me, it's just, where's your heart at in asking? And I think it's very important, like how you approach that person. And after they answer, appreciating and valuing the fact that they took the time to let you know what life has kind of been like for them, because I don't know, a lot of times that I have an outlet to share a part of who I am as far as my Native American ethnicity goes. And so it's really personal for me and valuable to me. And so I think for all of us in the history that we carry, even Germans and English, it's not something to be taken lightly, or it's not equivalent to like, what is your favorite color? It's just something that runs in our veins. So.
Yeah, when is it okay for someone to ask stupid questions?
Always.
Like which is the
Not
best
all
soccer
times.
team in the world?
Yeah. Well, I'm giving you an answer from after spending 18 years here and raising my family here in the States. My daughter was 2.5 when we moved, and Marcos was just 2 months old when we moved to the States. So they grew up here as a TCK, third culture kids. So in my house is always good to ask stupid questions. My daughter married in June, this past June, a gringo, and my son is dating a gringa. Okay? You know both of them. And so when they're at home, they bring their friends, and it's very interesting because, again, my daughter marrying a white person and my son dating a white person, all of their friends tend to be white also. So we ask all kinds of stupid questions. Some of them we would not be able to ask out of that context, but there are some inside jokes that we know what and when to use. And then, but it brings us closer. It's just a way that, we have decided as a family to approach this issue of mixed marriages and two different cultures coming together from the perspective of humor. And you can say a lot of things through humor, but I think we somehow have found a balance and the freedom to ask things and say things to each other in order to create understanding, to know where we're coming from. That my son, my second son, Lucas, all of his friends, with the exception of just a couple of kids, are Hispanics. Marcus's friends and Deborah's, they were white. Now we are having this wave of brownness coming to our house, completely different. But again, kids that grew up here, they're Hispanic, they're TCKs, just like my own children. And again, with them, we are building this, it's okay. You can talk about your heritage, you can even make fun of where you come from. Take it lightly, because in the essence, and you guys have said it very clearly, it's good. It's good to be different. I always tell them we should strive now for a melting pot where all the differences, kind of dilute. You cannot tell. On the contrary, we try to enhance those differences, and we celebrate that. And things that are said. So again, I've been here for 18 years. So when it's okay to ask, it's keep it always in my house, because it brings us. It brings awareness and just celebration of how different we are.
I think, like, again, emphasize, like, in your house, right? Like, but, like, if some stranger came up to you and asked a stupid question, I think that it's like, I think it has to come out of relationship. It can't just come out, like, outright. You don't want, guys, don't go up to someone who looks like me and just, like, what Carlos asked me today, like, can you see like everyone else sees? Like, that's a stupid question. And you can't just ask me that without having built a relationship first. That's making an assumption about my physical appearance. So maybe here it's okay, you can ask whatever you want in this setting, but don't go out and go up to a stranger and be like, hi, I'm good, I see this kid. That was not
Just
good.
I think something I'm learning, as a member of a dominant race, is not to ask those kinds of questions so much, but to ask questions about their experience. What has your experience been here on campus? What has your experience been in our community? That get a little bit below the waterline, I think, of some of those obvious questions.
That's not the mic. Hey, let me ask you, were you going to say something else? Yeah, go ahead.
But just to kind of like jump off what you said, I think a lot of those stupid questions, there's an underlying message. There's something, whether it's you seriously do not know, or the intent can be malicious, I don't know, but there's always an underlying, that's not really the question you're really asking when you're asking, can you see? Like, there's an underlying answer or something you really want to ask. So I think you saying, what has your experience been, or I think getting to the heart of the question, I don't know what those questions might be, or, you know what I'm saying, but I don't know. It seems, because we are all made in the image of God, because we all are humans, it's very hard for me to believe that someone is that superficial. And I mean superficial to the point where it's dehuman. I wouldn't say, I don't know.
Here's an example, I think. Last spring, when I was just getting to know Ty and a couple other guys in the BSA, and I was talking with them.
Can you tell us what the BSA stands for?
Yeah, the Black Student Association. And I just wanted to get to know them and learn more about their experience. And when we were sitting at a table, it just occurred to me that each one of them was wearing Grace logo wear, a sweatshirt or a cap or something. And so I was curious, and I said, guys, it just occurs to me that you're all wearing Grace logo wear, and that's fine, because a lot of Grace students do that, but do you ever do that on purpose when you go outside of our campus? Do you feel safer in our community wearing logo wear? And all of them instantly said, yeah, it's just a sign to the community that we belong here, and we're not going to get harassed. That was a breakthrough for me.
Now that you have the mic, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
As the white guy on the panel, people talk about something called white privilege. And I intentionally asked Alan to be on the panel to discuss white privilege because, so what is white privilege and how does it impact you?
Well, white privilege begins with an understanding of and an acceptance of the fact that we live in a white supremacist society. A society whose systems have largely been built by white people. And as members of that dominant race, we have a lot of unseen privileges. privileges that we're not aware of because it's just kind of the air we breathe, it's the water we swim in, and we don't see it because our lives just look like everybody else's. And so I've really come to understand white privilege more deeply through some of the work I've done in my doctoral program because it has a very strong social justice focus. And so about a year ago I was in a class and we did an activity called White Privilege Walk. And the professor cleared out the classroom and he had us all stand in the middle of the line and he asked us a series of 30 questions. And if you could answer yes to the question, you stepped forward. If you answered no to the question, you stepped backwards. And in my cohort, it's a mix of people. Several of my cohort members are people of color. And so here were some of the questions that he asked, and this will give you an idea of white privilege, what white privilege looks like. And by the way, I made handouts, copies of this, so if you're interested, you can take these with you. But it's pretty compelling. This is by Peggy McIntosh. For example, I can, if I wish, arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. If I should need to move, I can be pretty sure of renting or purchasing housing in an area where I can afford and in which I would want to live. That's white privilege. I can be pretty sure that my neighbors in such a location will be neutral or pleasant to me. I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. I can turn on the television or open to the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. When I'm told about our national heritage or about civilization, I'm shown that people of my color made it what it is. I can go into a music shop and count on finding the music of my race represented, into a supermarket and find the staple foods which fit my cultural traditions, into a hairdresser shop and find someone who can cut my hair. Whether I use checks, credit cards, or cash, I can count on my skin color not to work against the appearance of financial reliability. I do not have to educate my children to be aware of systematic racism for their own daily physical protection. So once I started becoming aware of those things, and once we were done with this white privilege walk, and I realized where I was at the front of the class, and many of my highly intelligent, highly successful classmates of color were at the back of the class, visually it struck me, this is not a level playing field. I like to think I've worked hard for what I've achieved, but I haven't worked as hard as they have, because there have been a lot of unseen barriers that they've had to overcome, unseen to me, not to them.
Okay, so who's on Twitter? Just a few, okay, Twitter must be the adulter thing. But anyways, it is crazy, and I tweeted something and someone came back at me kind of mean, and so I said, why don't we get on the phone, and this will make a difference. Because I just believe wholeheartedly that you cannot solve things on social media. It's just not the place to do it. And so this pastor, who happens to be white, and I think he's in Texas, he's in Texas, he got on the phone with me and he asked me questions about some of the things that I was just sharing. And by the end, he was telling me that, first of all, some of his thinking was changed, and he remembered when he was young, looking at a crayon, and the crayon color's name was, sorry, I'm forgetting the name. It was flesh, and it was white. It was like a pinkish. It was the color of a white, pinkish, beige-like. But the name was flesh, and yeah.
Assuming all flesh is that.
Yes, and it floored me just talking to him and thinking, wow, that if even as kids getting crayons. Now I imagine now we don't have crayons that are, I hope, that are called flesh, I haven't seen any of my kids' crayon box. Yeah. So there you go. Anyway.